Welcome to another episode of Mission Compliance, Unleashing Growth Potential for Defense Contractors. In today's episode, we continue down the road of understanding CMMC, its regulations, and controls. Up next is AC L2-3.1.22, Control CUI posted or processed on publicly accessible systems. We'll break down what this control means, why it matters, and how it impacts your organization's cybersecurity posture. We'll also provide practical insights and strategies for achieving compliance and securing your systems effectively. So whether you're a defense contractor aiming to win more contracts or simply someone interested in bolstering your cybersecurity knowledge, you're in the right place. Danger, Will Robinson. We're joined once again today by Mike Frieder, president of On-Call Compliance Solutions and a CMMC professional assessor. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure, Roman. Good to see you again.
And Mike, we've talked about it for a few weeks, but today is finally the day that we finish the first control family.
That's right. That's right. It's been a long road, 50 plus episodes. We're finally at the end of control family number one. So
13 more control families to go, so don't worry, we're not going anywhere.
that's right.
With that being said, this week we're talking about publicly posting CUI, or rather not publicly posting CUI. This one seems so obvious that it's almost silly that we're talking about it, but as you say in the video for this control, if you don't say it, someone will do it. So with that being said, why is it important to be careful where you're posting CUI?
Yeah. So great question, Roman. And it's it reminds me that we're going through these controls at the speed of NIST revision 3. So I know it's a compliance joke. There's no laughing there. All right, I tried. So this control, it's again, so control CUI posted or processed on publicly accessible systems. And I think there's two elements here. One is a blinding flash of the obvious. And what I mean by that is, duh, you should not post CUI on publicly accessible websites. However, it's not really quite that simple because a lot of people don't realize the extent to what CUI is. And I'll just throw out like a couple of random examples that we have seen to give you an idea of why this is actually something you really do need to train your people on. Example number one is, hey, look at this cool widget we're building, and they go post it on Instagram along with what it is and who it's for. And I gotta tell you guys, we walk into a lot of really, really cool clients. I mean, clients that are on cutting edge engineering, space and space design programs, manufacturing really cool one-off parts, aerospace companies. Like, we see cool stuff. And you know what? You want to post cool stuff on social media. But when it's defense related, that is a big no-no. But that's just not intuitive. There are a lot of other companies who would love to be posting the things that they're building on social media or in their advertising. Okay. So another one is, going back through your advertising to make sure that you don't advertise parts that are perhaps maybe something used in the assembly of a tank or an F-22 Raptor. There's a lot of really obvious things that if you say it, it makes sense. But when you're running a business and you're trying to come up with marketing collateral or you're a marketing person, or even if you are a contractor brought in to, let's say, anodize a part on one of these things, and you're like, dude, that's so cool. I just anodized the barrel of a tank or something like that. Again, people just don't really kind of put two and two together until it's pointed out to them that that's a risk to national security secrets. I have a good friend of mine who has built an app, and the app can literally measure your waist size, your shirt size, your shoe size with an iPhone camera. So in other words, you could literally stand still in an iPhone camera from 6 feet away, and it will literally produce less than like a fraction of a millimeter accurate measurements of you. And the app is developed for clothing and apparel. But let me tell you what, it would not be real hard to take a picture of some kind of, military part, get it into that app and get very precise measurements, certainly be able to model it at scale and reproduce it with, a really good engineering team in a foreign country. And so it just really is that important that they've got this control in here. And yeah, when you read it, it's obvious, but it's not obvious. It's not obvious in day-to-day life. We take pictures of our kids' most personal moments. We take pictures of our pets. We take pictures of like literally like what we ate. Nobody cares what you ate, right? But that's what we do. That's what we're like practically trained to do by social media in this country. So I think there's that element. Another example I'll give, coding. Okay, using public GitHub repositories. If you don't know what GitHub is sort of a version control software for managing programming and applications that are developed. And there are public repositories out there. In fact, there's a lot of open source programming that is used in military apparatus. That's great until you get a military contract to go take that open source code and go modify it into a specific military application. You cannot sit there and keep that code in the public repository, even though that might have been how it started out. That's a huge no-no. You're gonna have to run your own private GitHub, or you're gonna have to use a FedRAMP moderate version of GitHub, like like government, to deal with this stuff. And we deal with this all the time. It is really a challenge for those people who are developing code or programming robots or any number of those kinds of applications. You've got to basically run your own private GitHub repository. One thing we've been very, very successful at is spinning up virtual servers and then running GitHub Enterprise inside of Azure Government. And for that matter, a lot of other applications, ERP, MRP softwares where they've got like a public cloud version of it, but it's not going to meet compliance. So we can take those, we can spin them up on virtual servers inside of Azure Government and allow you to work with the same applications and softwares you love, just in a compliant environment. So you've got to be careful about that too. There's so much to this, and much of it is not intuitive. Much of it is your day-to-day life that you normally do, posting on Facebook, Instagram, marketing materials, etc. Look, you gotta get permission to post that stuff. So yeah, that's a little bit about that control. It's probably more commonly violated than you think, which means it requires more training than you think.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that is, you're talking about, we take pictures of our kids every day and all this sort of stuff. I've seen online you have those like first day of school pictures that some parents take where they're holding up where the kids are holding up the chalkboard as like, my name is so and so, I'm in this grade and this is my teacher and all that, and I want to be this when I grow up. And I've heard people say like, don't put the name of your kid's teacher on Facebook because that's how people can find you. Like they can go to like, if they can figure out what school it is, they can go to the teacher, they can find the kid, like, and so it's interesting you bring up like we post pictures of our kids because that's one way that information and identities can get taken is something as simple as like a first day of school photo with one of those chalkboards with all that information on it. And the other thing is, I've said this before. I think I said this on our last control related podcast that CUI may stand for controlled unclassified information, but you almost have to treat it as if it is classified. Like, don't let it see the light of day unless that light of day is the people that are allowed to see it.
Let's take that example of the kid's picture from school. Facebook uses geolocation and sits there and tags pictures with metadata on where that picture was taken. So, let's say that you've got something that you're developing that's really super cool. You're going to sit there and go tell our enemies right on Facebook exactly where your facility is located and where
Mhm.
these parts are being manufactured. I cannot count the stories. And it's like, if I was hearing this for the first time and I hadn't been in the defense industry working with clients for almost 21 years, gosh, almost 22 now, I would just, I'll tell you, I hear stories about random people that are like found in facilities that they have to eject, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And they don't even have an explanation for why they're there. And these are not homeless people. These are random people they just kind of find walking around the facilities, and it's unreal. Some of the stories. There's a great short we have about a situation that was super sketchy with a backup camera that was pointed right at somebody's quality room, where all the blueprints are laid out, all the specifications are sitting right out there in the open. And it was like, dude, you can't, this thing's eye level with the parking lot. And there's literally there's like 15, car cameras pointing. And sure enough, somebody basically, you know, we went out to investigate who somebody was. It was sitting in their car and they just drove off and it was not an employee. Um, these things do happen and they happen in defense. Espionage is real. It's not a joke.
So with all that being said, why don't we outline this? What are the key assessment points on this one?
Yeah, terrific question. So, you know, number one, this has got actually quite a few assessment points, right? So there's one, two, three, four, five different assessment points that they're looking for here. Number one is determine if individuals authorized to post or process information on publicly accessible systems are identified. So has the organization identified a person who is like your PR person or your person who is actually authorized to post things publicly if there is such a thing? Like if you can get permission to post this from your contracting officer or your prime, who's that person it's got to go through? And so again, we would say, you know, posting of CUI on publicly accessible systems is expressly prohibited by the IT use and cybersecurity policy. That's the answer I would give. Now, if you're a company that really, really wants to aggressively market, you've got to show these parts for some reason. You know, you may have a much different answer, but you know, generally speaking, I think for most people, they will just say, look, obviously we can avoid this. It's not impossible. We can talk through it with somebody what our technical capabilities are without revealing CUI. The second point is determine if procedures to ensure CUI is not posted or processed on publicly accessible systems are identified. Again, we're going to take the easy way out and say posting of CUI on publicly accessible systems is expressly prohibited by the IT use and cybersecurity policy, and that is our, I mean that is our procedure. However, if you were someone who was allowed to post the CUI publicly for whatever reason, I don't know what that would be, then you would have to have written procedures on exactly how that gets done to meet the essence of this control. So you'd have to have a CUI publishing policy or procedure, I guess. And again, we've written one of those before for a client. And again, it's sort of a chain of custody kind of thing. Next assessment point, determine if a review process is in place prior to posting of any content publicly accessible systems. So again, is there a review process where some person with oversight over the person who can post it gets to review what's being posted and make sure that we're going to be okay? Again, same answer for all of these. It's going to be the posting of CUI is just simply not allowed per the IT use and cybersecurity policy. Fourth assessment point is determine if content on publicly accessible systems is reviewed to ensure that it does not include CUI. Kind of a really goofy way that they're trying to assess this because first they're like, hey, determine if there's a review process in place. Now they're saying, make sure it's not there. Like, I don't really know what bigger hint they could give you in the assessment points, but it is kind of interesting that they're saying, well, there should be a designated person. And I think what they really mean to say, and maybe it's just poorly worded, is there should be a review process in your company for marketing materials or posting things publicly uh, to make sure CUI is not a part of it. That I think would be much better wording than what they have here. I think they take 5 assessment points. It's kind of convoluted and it just is very confusing, to be honest. Final one, determine if mechanisms are in place to remove and address improper posting of CUI. So do you have something in place that will review what you have out there as a company and get it removed if there's an improper posting? Again, the easiest way to deal with this is to basically say that we just don't post it, so it would never get posted. But you're going to have some kind of a cleanup procedure as well. And so you should really have a review process to make sure that everything is clean. And if for some reason something gets through the cracks, we can correct that. So those are the assessment points, Roman. It's a whole lot of wording to get at a very simple concept. And frankly, I think they probably could do a little bit better job on that. We'll look for changes in that NIST revision 3, but you know, again, as everybody knows, NIST revision 3 is not relevant to defense quite yet.
So this doesn't seem very difficult to enact, but when you have humans, you have human error, where you have, like the backup camera situation. So what, if any, difficulties are there on this one, or can you share a story of times when this was an issue?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of go back to the first question. Number one is we've got tons and tons of clients where we, you know, in our initial stages of working with them, we'll review their website and see all kinds of really fascinating, cool parts and services and things that they're doing for the military. And yeah, we do our best to kind of walk the line of being reasonable about these things, but we will ask them, hey, is what's in this picture something that, you know, you could deduce something that's non-public information from? So we'll ask those questions, and we commonly come up with, client websites before they start working with us where they may have some things posted that they shouldn't. Another example is, again, like we talked about earlier, the coding and winding up having coding to something pretty sensitive sitting in a public coding repository. That's a major issue, and we definitely should address that if it's present. And then there's just the general employee training. And I'll tell you, the bigger the company you are, the more tricky this really gets. Employees on their way in the door really need thorough training on what it takes to safeguard CUI. That's like the number one thing they should get once they've signed their benefit sheet, right? It's, hey, welcome to the company. By the way, here are the rules of the road when it comes to handling CUI and all this government information we're about to dump on you and expose you to. So yeah, lots and lots of examples. And again, marketing and sales departments are always trying to push the limits to show the true capability of what you can do, without giving away the whole farm. So I think that's another place, especially today, the trend is to be more transparent, give away value, all that kind of stuff in marketing and sales. And so as people really move towards those trends, they truly get to the point where it would be useful to show past work and past performance. But again, there are rules to doing work in the defense industry, as you know. So yeah, those are some really great examples.
Exactly. And that's great information about a very important topic that again might seem obvious, but people miss it. And it's something that we're here to talk about because it gets missed. And so to wrap up our first control family, we're gonna do what we usually do. We're gonna end this with a silly question, and I'm crafting it as we speak. Um, so with this being a control about CUI being publicly posted or processed, somebody puts information or new technology on Facebook to share it with people. What if somebody posted the CUI, but the message was encoded with one of those "this message will self-destruct in 5 seconds" things, so that it was just gone after 5 seconds? Or what if it was a red herring and they posted something similar to what they're developing, but it's not actually the proprietary thing they're developing, so that they misdirect anyone that might be nefarious when looking at
So I'll try to address the first part of that question.
it?
First part of that, what I should really do is try to make you repeat that, but I won't. Uh, I think the first part of the question is, first off, we call that a Snapchat. And then, you know, self-destructing messages are actually real, but it is not the same as encryption. So one, that would be illegal because you wouldn't have encryption on that self-destructing message. Therefore, that would be a violation. So we just won't go there. Second answer to that question would be the misdirection. Look, if it's not CUI, it's not CUI. So if it's a misdirect, redirect kind of thing, I don't think any of that matters. I think the bottom line is it's either CUI or it's not. So if it's not, well then, there's nothing to worry about. Ultimately, you just want to use your brain about this kind of stuff. I think that, I think that there is, I know in my position, we love to talk about the past performance and things that we've done. We love to show it off, but we are highly restricted in doing that because of the nature of what we do. We have NDAs and confidentialities with every single client. And I think that, you probably, if you're listening to this, you probably have those too with your client, even the, DoD, Navy, whatever it may be, they typically have privacy clauses in there. So you really got to pay attention to that. I think, much besides that though, and the reality is, as they say, don't air your dirty laundry. And it's probably a really, really good idea to just simply make sure that you have got, somebody who is in charge of making sure that what you're putting out there, from a marketing perspective as a company, is actually okay to put out there. So, yeah.
We know all about messages that will self-destruct. My favorite film franchise is Mission Impossible, and they do that in almost every movie.
That's right. That's right.
And that wraps up another great episode of Mission Compliance. We hope our discussion today has provided you with valuable insights, practical strategies, and inspiration to navigate the ever-evolving world of defense. We'd like to thank Mike for joining us and providing us valuable information on the final control of Control Family number 1. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure. Glad we got through the first family together.
But the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring these topics and connect with us on our social media channels. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and engage with fellow listeners using the hashtag Mission Compliance Podcast. If they haven't already, what should they do, Mike?
Well, they should like, subscribe, and tell their friends because you know what? This podcast grows by leaps and bounds every week, and we're excited to get everybody in checking us out.
That's right. Go to your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode like this one. And we truly appreciate it if you could rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you thought-provoking episodes and high-quality content. Join us again next time as we delve into Control Family number 2. Don't worry, it's not as long as Control Family number 1. In fact, I believe Control Family number 1 is the longest in terms of individual controls. So it's all smooth sailing from here until we get to Control Family 13. Until then, take care, stay informed, and make compliance your mission. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.